I've used a lot of meal services, but Hungry Root truly stands out because it's built around the way real families live and eat. They don't just send meal kits. They personalize your grocery cart and meal plan based on your preferences and dietary goals. All I had to do was take a short quiz, and right away, their smart cart technology started building a cart that fit how we eat. Now, each week feels easier, like someone else is doing the thinking for me. I've been focused on cleaner eating lately, and I love that Hungry Root keeps out over 200 additives, including things like high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. Their meats are hormone and antibiotic free, and the produce options include organic and non-GMO picks. They also stock brands I already trust, like Oatly, Vital Farms, and Harmless Harvest. One of our favorite meals has been the teriyaki salmon with green beans, light, flavorful, and done in 12 minutes flat. Plus, I've noticed we waste less food, spend less time shopping, and even save money by skipping those impulse grocery buys. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg and use code Dr. Meg. That's hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg, code Dr. Meg, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg, code Dr. Meg.
On today's episode of Parenting Great Kids.
Caring for a chronically ill child presents significant challenges for parents, often leaving them in need of support and guidance.
I was in my third year of my pediatrics residency when my 6-month-old daughter, who was my second child, was diagnosed with pediatric neuroblastoma, a type of pediatric cancer. I had cared for patients who had neuroblastoma, so when I got that news, I knew exactly what it meant for my daughter, and I knew exactly what the next several months were going to look like, and I felt like my world had come crashing down.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. Here's your host, Dr. Meg Meeker.
Well, today we're joined by Dr. Maureen Michelle Peterson, a respected leader, life coach, author, and physician specializing in pediatric care. Thank you so much for joining me today, Maureen.
I so appreciate you having me on your show. This is really going to be a fun conversation.
You know, it really is. And I have to tell you, your book is one of those books that come across my desk and I go, do I really want to read this? I have to read it. It's going to be so hard. It's painful, but it's so good because so many parents are dealing with chronically ill children. And it's a topic we kind of want to avoid because it's going to be painful, but you write about it in such a wonderful way. So when you thought about writing the book, who were you writing it to specifically? Parents, professionals? Who did you have in mind?
Yeah, that is an interesting question to start with, because I will tell you, in writing the book, I started just because my kids always asked, "Hey, Mom, can you tell me the story of this? Or can you tell me the story of that?" And it was being written as kind of a historical document for my kids and my kids' kids. When I started writing it, I realized that my family's story could really help other families. And so I kind of changed who my audience was going to be for the book and took not only my stories, but stories of patients that I had cared for and melded them together to give readers a very practical lesson on various topics with tips that they can put into their life when they're reading it. I thought I was going to crank this book out in a weekend. And I will tell you, it did not take me a weekend. It was a very long process. And some of that was because I realized when I wrote the last sentence of the book, I closed my laptop and just started to cry because I realized how much healing had been done on myself by going through the writing process. And I needed to kind of uncover wounds that I really hadn't fully processed at the time. But I needed to do that because I wanted my readers to be able to really truly understand what I was going through in the moment. So it meant reliving all of those moments in excruciating detail. But by doing that, I was brought to such a better place that I totally didn't realize when taking on the project of writing the book.
Well, I think that's what I was alluding to when I was looking at your book, saying, I don't know if I want to read it, but I have to read it. It's one of those things that's kind of painful, but you have to walk into it. Now, I don't have a child that's chronically ill, but I've cared for a number of kids who are. And I will tell you, even as their pediatrician walking this through with them, it's very painful. So I can imagine how painful this was for you. Would you mind backing up and telling us a little bit about your personal story as a mom?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was a kid, I really had two things I dreamed about. I dreamed about being a mom and I dreamed about taking care of kids. And I was very fortunate in being able to achieve both of those dreams. I was in my third year of my pediatrics residency when my 6-month-old daughter, who was my second child, was diagnosed with pediatric neuroblastoma, a type of pediatric cancer. I had cared for patients who had neuroblastoma. So when I got that news, I knew exactly what it meant for my daughter. And I knew exactly what the next several months were going to look like. And I felt like my world had come crashing down. I went to a very dark place and felt like I couldn't ask for help, that if I was asking for help, it meant I was failing as a mom, and failing as a mom wasn't an option because this was my kind of childhood dream. So I went through the motions of taking care of her and hoping and praying that she was going to be okay. Things got better with time, and the farther we got away from her diagnosis. Then fast forward to when she turned 12, she went to a school for the arts and texted me from school and said, "Something's wrong with me. You need to bring home whatever you need to fix me because I have peed 12 times at school today." So I was convinced she had a urinary tract infection, because how could the universe be so evil to have any other bad thing happen to her? Like, we had already gone through the whole cancer journey. So I went to the pediatrics clinic. I took a urine cup and a urine dipstick and brought it over to her school because it was closer than going all the way back home and then into the hospital. So went to her school. She met me at the front desk of the school. I gave her the urine cup, and she called me into this tiny school bathroom when she was done peeing in the cup, and I dipped the urine, and immediately the glucose measurement was very dark. And I, as a physician, knew there's only one thing that that causes that, and that is type 1 diabetes. So through tears, I got to be the physician to tell my daughter that her life was going to forever change with this new diagnosis of type 1 diabetes. I realized, though, after kind of adjusting to that diagnosis, that I needed to figure things out because I knew what that kind of dark place looked like if we don't take care of ourselves. And I didn't want that to happen again. And I knew diabetes wasn't going away. There's no cure for it. So it's figuring out life with diabetes. I listened to podcasts. I read books. I got a coach. I sought out a therapist. I did all of the things and realized, again, the importance of taking care of your mental health on helping your child. Fast forward to a couple years later, I had a leadership position at the hospital and decided to become a certified life coach to help with mentorship in that role. Realized that the tools that I had learned through coaching were actually very helpful in the clinic when I was helping patients and families who had a similar story as my own personal story. And I have become very passionate about coaching parents who have a chronically ill kid to make sure that they understand that we may go through this grieving process, but life isn't over. It's just different, and it can be beautiful and rewarding and awesome. We just need to figure out how we want it to look.
You know, I love your perspective. And as a woman pediatrician myself and a mom, you know, you do feel very self-conscious when you get a diagnosis that something's wrong with your kids. Well, first of all, we're expected to be able to diagnose our own kids and to treat our kids. And that sentence that you said, that your daughter said, come and bring something to fix me. You know, you feel as a physician, mom, you should always be able to fix your kids. Now, all moms feel they should be able to fix their kids, but I think it's even more intense for us because we should know all the things. But the truth of the matter is, when our kids become sick, it's part of like our brain just goes to mush. You know, we think of all the worst things and then we feel like, but I don't know what to do. When you first got the diagnosis that your daughter had diabetes, was there a sense that you had of what she was going to lose in life? Oh my gosh, she'll never be this and she'll never be that and she'll never be this. Or did you not? Because sometimes I think some of the patients that I have will feel that their child's life has stopped. Did you ever feel like that?
I don't know if I felt like her life had stopped. I just knew how it was going to be drastically different. And I knew she was 12 at the time and was dancing ballet hardcore at a school for the arts. And I knew how activity like hardcore ballet is going to impact trying to manage blood sugars. So I didn't know how her ballet future was really going to play out. And I will tell you a quick story that she, after getting the diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, went back to the school, was dancing. A year later, had a teacher who was not very accepting of the fact that she had to wear an insulin pump to class. So anytime she was doing the right things to take care of herself, she would get kicked out of ballet class. And her self-esteem plummeted because it was this thought that she had that I can't do what I love because of my diagnosis. So that teacher, instead of empowering her, was very disempowering. And I ended up pulling her from the school. She would not step into a ballet studio for the next couple of years, but came home from school and from her new school and said, I'm going to play ice hockey. And I said, what are you talking about? Ice hockey?
Ballet to ice hockey.
You don't know how to even skate. Mm-hmm. Well, she went from not knowing how to skate to being a fierce ice hockey player, and became the captain of her high school ice hockey team. And all of that was because of these lessons that she had learned through ballet. Mm-hmm. So it really taught her and us as a family about how life works out exactly the way it's supposed to. And the challenges you go through in life are setting you up for the success that you are going to have in the future. You just need to really firmly believe that.
Mm-hmm. I love the story because, people who are successful in life have been through many quote unquote failures or disappointments or feeling that, that door is shut and now what do I do? Do you think that her having diabetes has caused her to be more resilient?
Oh, 110%. Yes. Mm-hmm. And, it has taught her how to be resilient, from watching me, and also understanding how it is to advocate for herself. Mm-hmm. Diabetes has also taught her how to stay healthy, how to be organized, how to be accepting of others, how to have dreams and not let anything impact your dream. There's a lot of great things that diabetes has taught her and has taught me, even though I took care of so many type 1 diabetic patients as a pediatrician. Her type 1 diabetes has taught me so much more about that specific disease, but also just about life. Mm-hmm. And I am grateful for the opportunity to be her mom. Challenges in life, we have a choice. They can either make us kind of crumple in a ball and, hide in a corner, or we can turn them into a gift. And we have gotten very good at figuring out how it can be a gift.
Many professionals invest in an executive coach for personal development and a trainer for physical fitness. Now, you can hire me, a best-selling author and expert coach, to help you raise great kids. I've over 35 years practicing pediatrics and an extensive experience decoding what your kids need and think about you. I've helped countless parents just like you. You can talk directly with me through private or group coaching. I'll listen and provide a customized plan to help you be the best dad you can be. Sign up now through the link in the episode notes. Your kids are counting on you. Let's make your family's future brighter together. Some days, parenting feels like chasing moments that never quite land. You ask a question, they shrug. You try again, they look at their screen. And you wonder, why is this so hard? That's why I love FamGabs. It's a 70-card deck created by a child therapist who spent 16 years working directly with families, helping parents and kids break through the awkward one-word answers and really connect. The questions are open-ended, thoughtfully chosen and designed to get your child talking and keep the conversation going. There are even bonus cards just for parents to help you build your confidence in your connection toolbox. If you've ever wished for a better way to understand your child or just to have more meaningful conversations as a family, FamGabs is such a gift. Search FamGabs on Amazon and use promo code Dr. Meg Pod during checkout to get 10% off your order. That's FAMGABS on Amazon. Use promo code Dr. Meg Pod and get 10% off your order. I've had so many parents say, Dr. Meg, my child is bright, but they're struggling in school and I don't know what to do. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And that's why I'm excited to share K-12 Powered Schools with you. K-12 offers tuition-free, accredited online public education for grades K through 12. These programs let kids learn at their own pace with built-in flexibility that supports different learning styles and family needs. And unlike homeschooling, K-12 provides certified teachers who guide your child's education online. The lessons are engaging, the technology is hands-on, and your child gets real opportunities to connect with clubs, extracurriculars, and even in-person events. As a mom, a grandmother, and a pediatrician, I know how powerful it is when education meets your child's needs instead of the other way around. So if you're looking for something different, something better, go to k12.com/Dr. Meg and find a tuition-free K-12 powered school near you. That's k12.com/DRMEG, all caps.
Talk to parents out there who feel their job as a mom or a dad is to protect their child and make sure nothing bad happens to their child. And many parents are hypersensitive to bad things happening to their kids. So talk to those parents about how they help their kids. And these are parents not necessarily of chronically ill children, but how do they teach their kids to, for lack of a better word, sort of toughen up in life and say, yes, I have this horrible, hard thing in front of me, but here's what I'm going to do. What specific steps can they take to sort of plow through their fears of their child failing or having something bad happen to them?
So I would say the very first step is taking care of yourself, because as a parent, we not only teach our kids with words, but we're teaching them with our actions. So when we talk the talk and walk the walk, we're really having our kids learn from us. Understanding that we need to be vulnerable is a very critical lesson for our child. And what I mean by that is, there have been times that I have been stressed about my daughter's healthcare or nervous about her going to a friend's house or a high school trip or any, you pick what kind of scenario. But being vulnerable and telling your child, like, I'm nervous about you going with your friends on this trip, and really having them understand that emotions are a normal part of life. What we all too often try to do is be very stoic so that our kids think they shouldn't have emotions. They shouldn't be afraid, or they shouldn't be stressed, or they shouldn't be nervous. We need to normalize those emotions with our own vulnerability. The other thing is what you had mentioned earlier, just about failure. We need to let our kids fail. failing is not a bad thing. We make it seem like it's bad, but failing is just data. It's data to teach us to do something different or go a different route. But it doesn't mean it's bad. It's as important as success is. Success is also data, and it teaches us a path to go down correctly or a way to do something efficiently. So using success and failure and normalizing it and allowing your child to really embrace failure is something we can do to allow them to become resilient and understand that there are going to be obstacles in life. We cannot protect them from everything, and they will never learn to do it on their own if we don't allow them to fail. Our job as a parent is, when they fail, make them understand it's okay. You can still get up and go forward again. You just need to do it differently. And so it's to be that kind of net to catch them, but we still need to allow them to fall.
It's hard because as a parent, parents are afraid for their kids to fail because they want their kids to have life go a certain way. And I think that when a child fails, a parent feels like they're a failure. So, you mentioned long ago, or you mentioned earlier in the interview at one point that you kind of felt like a failure as a mom, and being a failure as a mom was not an option. And so I think that, we have to be very, very careful about not transferring our issues onto our kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't. You mentioned also that parents need to take care of themselves early in the diagnosis of or along the way of a child's chronic illness. How did you take care of yourself?
Yeah, so I got over the fact that asking for help is this sign of failure, that I realized and needed to reframe that kind of limiting belief to understand that asking for help is something that we all need to be comfortable with, because I think about the times when I'm able to step in and help a friend, and I get, warm and fuzzy because I'm able to lend a helping hand. When we're not asking for help, what we're really doing is not allowing someone else who's in our support circle to have that warm and fuzzy feeling to help us. So why not give them this gift of being able to step in? It's a real sign of strength to be able to evaluate what you have on your plate and to say, I need to offload some of this because I cannot do everything. That delegation piece is part of parenting. It's not what I had originally thought, which was I need to do everything. And if I don't do everything, then I'm failing as a mom. That's not the case. So reframing that thought is super important. The other piece of taking care of yourself is doing the things that give you joy and giving yourself a few moments in a day to kind of understand and get yourself grounded so that you're able to kind of take on the world. We nowadays talk a lot about self-care, and when people start talking about self-care, they think, oh, she's talking about a spa day. I am not talking about spa days. Spa days are great if you have the time and finances for a spa day, but I'm talking about every parent needs to be able to have a good mindset to take care of their kids and teach their kids, because that role of parenting takes patience. And if we don't take care of our mindset and continue to cultivate all of the things that give us the mental energy to parent, then we're going to let our kids down. So doing things like journaling, meditating, reading a book for just a few minutes, exercising, all of those things can be done within just minutes of during the day, but they need to be done every day. So it needs to be prioritized.
Do parents of chronically ill children ever feel guilty so that they don't want to allow themselves to have joy because their child is living with an illness that they don't have? Have you ever run?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I will say there, a parent of a chronically ill kid will, if given the opportunity, would change places with that child without thinking. I would love to be the diabetic in our family rather than my daughter, but that's not reality. And so it's understanding that you can't change the circumstances that you are given in your life, but you certainly can change how you experience and react to those circumstances. Feeling guilty is absolutely a normal emotion, but it's an emotion that you got to work through, because you can't stay guilty, because when you're staying guilty, you're staying stuck with this idea that your life needs to be awful. And that's not the case.
I completely understand that, because I think that parents so desperately want to switch places with their kids or take the burden off of their kids and onto their shoulders. And it's almost like survival guilt. If you can't, then you just sort of wear this. There are a lot of practical things that parents of chronically ill kids need to know. And you talk about these. One is understanding the illness. Another is daily management. Can you go through a few of those to give parents very practical things to do if they have a chronically ill child?
Yeah. So I will say the biggest tip that I can give is the advocacy piece of it, because a parent of a chronically ill child is going to have to advocate for their kid at some point in time, whether it be in a healthcare provider's office, whether it be in a school system. There's lots of opportunities to advocate. And when you advocate, the big thing you need to do is first understand what you want out of that advocacy meeting or appointment, and write it down. Write down questions, write down things that you want to make sure that you cover. Have a list so that you're prepared when you go into that meeting. When you go into the advocacy meeting, what I want them to understand is that advocacy doesn't mean an argument. When we think of it as an argument, we put our defense armor on. And so we are ready for battle. That's not a good way to approach a conversation. When you go into it, realizing the people that you're going to advocate to are humans, just like all of us, and they're all on the same level, that you're not putting your physician or school official on a pedestal. They're all on the same level. You can go into it with better emotional energy to realize it's a conversation that you're going to have. When you're in the appointment or meeting, it's staying curious. Even when someone is telling you something that you don't really think is right or you don't really agree with, keep an open mind and keep asking questions to really get a good understanding and figure out what pieces can really help you and your child in the moment. And continuing to have a conversation builds mutual trust and respect, which is really what builds a good response to an advocacy appointment.
How important is it for the parent to have a physician? Usually their primary care physician is sort of the doorway to all the specialists. How important is it for them to have a pediatrician that they really trust? And how do they find that person?
Yeah. And I'm sure you have thoughts on this too, but it needs to be somebody that they trust, because you're never going to get exceptional care for your kid if you feel like you're holding things back from the person who is there to help you manage your child's health journey. So there needs to be a good amount of trust that is there in that primary care provider. And that may take a little bit of work. It may take a little bit to find someone that you really connect with, who are confident, will allow that family to go have a second opinion. I know that I don't mind it because I want the healthcare of my patient to be the priority. And if they feel more comfortable with someone else, so be it, that the goal of good healthcare is still being accomplished. I also have no problem with second opinions because I'm confident in what I'm telling my patient, and a second opinion can really drive home the points that I have told them, because they're going to hear the same thing just because of how I practice medicine. But second opinions can be helpful because not everybody's personality will connect right off the bat. So it may take a little bit of work, but avoiding frustration in the process is important.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that if a parent asks for a second opinion talking to their pediatrician, and the pediatrician puts them off and said, "Oh, you don't need to do it," that's a red flag, because I've often had, parents say, "I need a second opinion," and I encourage it.
Yeah.
Just like you said, because I want them to know that my first priority is to make sure their child gets what they need. And if they need somebody that they can connect with better than with me, that's really what I would like them to do. Parents often become better or more knowledgeable about their child's illness than some of the doctors they see. And this can be a little intimidating for doctors, but again, a good doctor won't be intimidated by it. They will respect that you know a lot about your kid because your whole focus is on studying that illness with your child. And our focus is on a multitude of illnesses. So how important is it for a parent to understand their child's illness and then communicate to their physician that they really know what's happening and they need support and guidance in there?
Yeah, super important. But the other thing that I often tell parents is when something doesn't go right and you have a concern about your child, I will tell them that we as physicians may not know exactly what diagnosis is happening in the moment. And so telling a parent, you know what, I don't know what's going on, but I want you to watch out for X, Y, and Z, and I want you to come back in X amount of time so that we can kind of reevaluate it, because diagnoses can develop over time. Mm-hmm. I guide parents to make sure that their physicians don't say to them, I don't know what's going on, and let them walk out the door. That you as a parent need to say, okay, I understand you don't know what's going on, but tell me, what should I look for? When should I call you? What will concern you? When should I come back? And so don't let your physician off the hook that easily. Yeah. But they should be given kind of clear guidance on when to follow up. It's important not to get frustrated in that process, though, because medicine and healthcare, that's the way it goes sometimes, is that a diagnosis isn't clear right in that first meeting.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times illnesses do evolve and they change. Yeah. And it can be hard for physicians to follow and to track. One of the things I think is important for physicians, I would take, the point a little bit further and say, if your physician says, I really don't know what's going on, watch for these things. I will tell that patient or parent, I don't know what's happening, but I will help you find out. I will find somebody that can answer the questions, and I can make some phone calls, because that's one of the best things that we can offer patients is, we have entree into a lot of a big pool of physicians who know their craft very well, and they're specialized in something, and they can help us. So we can sort of say, I don't know, but here I want you to go to this endocrinologist or this person. So push on your physician.
Yes.
If they say they don't know, don't walk out the door. Say, well, how are you going to help me find the answer?
Right.
Because we don't have the answer. And sometimes you just have to advocate, with your own physician. But again, a good physician should work with you and say, okay, let's figure this out together. Because sometimes physicians can feel a little bit intimidated by parents who know the illness so well. But if your physician feels intimidated, then find another one, because you are going to have a physician who is not going to know everything, but they should at least be able to help you find the answers. My guest has been Dr. Maureen Michelle Peterson. Her book is Reclaiming Life, a guide for parents of chronically ill children. It is a fabulous read. I would say it's not just a book for parents who have chronically ill children, but for friends who want to help those parents, for physicians who want to help those parents, even older kids who are going through a chronic illness themselves, or they see that in one of their friends. It's a fabulous read. Dr. Peterson, how can people get hold of you or follow you more closely?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is maureenmichellemd.com. That's Michelle with one L. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook as Maureen Michelle.
And maybe on your Instagrams, you will post periodically a video of you jump roping.
Absolutely.
Because what our audience doesn't know is you're an excellent jump roper. And those are videos that I would like to see. Maureen, thank you so much. I hope your book does it incredibly well. It's very, very important. It's very warm. It's very down to earth, and it's filled with practical tips. And I think that so many people are going to benefit by reading it.
Thank you so much. I really value what you do, and thank you for allowing me the time to chat with your audience.
I want you to know that I am so excited to be offering VIP coaching calls. Just go to my website, meekerparenting.com, and sign up today. You won't be sorry.